two men, police uniforms, one museum. What happened next would haunt the art world forever. It was the early hours of March 18th, 1990. Boston's cobblestone streets were still alive with the remnants of St. Patrick's Day revelry. The air smelled of beer and celebration. But while most were winding down from the night, two men approached the side entrance of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Their police uniforms gleamed under the dim streetlights, giving them an air of authority. The young security guard on duty wasn't expecting company, but the men claimed to be responding to a disturbance. Their badges flashed. Their voices were firm. The guard hesitated. Protocol dictated that no one should be allowed in at night. But these were cops. What could go wrong? He buzzed them in. Within minutes, he and his fellow guard were handcuffed, gagged, and locked in the basement. What followed was 81 minutes of pure precision, leaving behind an empty gallery, a mystery and questions that would span decades. Would this decision become the key to unraveling the case or the first misstep in a string of failures? Stay with me. This is where the story begins. 15 minutes. That's all it took to turn an ordinary night into chaos. But who were these men and why this museum? The officers didn't waste a second. As soon as they stepped inside, their demeanor shifted. The friendly, authoritative tone was gone, replaced by something cold, calculating. They ordered the guards to step away from their stations. The guards, still believing these were real police officers, complied without resistance. That trust was their undoing. In a swift, rehearsed motion, the guards were overpowered, handcuffed, and gagged. The intruders didn't shout or panic. Everything seemed carefully planned. They led the guards to the basement, where they secured them with duct tape around their hands, feet, and heads. The two men weren't just stealing art. They were stealing time, ensuring no alarms would sound and no interruptions would come. But as the heist unfolded, one question loomed large. Why the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum? It wasn't the largest museum in the world, nor the most well-guarded. Yet in that moment, these men acted as if they knew exactly what they wanted and exactly how to take it. Was this a crime of passion, profit, or something far more complex? One thing was clear: they weren't improvising. Every move was deliberate. But how did they know the museum's vulnerabilities? Could someone have helped them from the inside? They didn't just take art, they chose their victims. But why these pieces? And why leave others behind? Once the guards were silenced, the thieves moved through the museum as if guided by an invisible map. They bypassed rooms filled with priceless treasures, heading straight for specific works. Their first stop, the Dutch room, where Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee hung, a masterpiece depicting Christ and his disciples battling a violent storm. It was Rembrandt's only known seascape, and they cut it from its frame with chilling precision. Next, they targeted Vermeer's The Concert, a hauntingly intimate scene of musicians gathered in a quiet room. Experts later called it one of the most valuable missing artworks in the world, worth hundreds of millions alone. Yet other priceless pieces, including Titian's Rape of Europa, remained untouched. Even more strangely, they took objects of seemingly lesser value: a bronze eagle finial from a Napoleonic flag and an ancient Chinese beaker. This was no random smash and grab. Their choices suggested a purpose, or perhaps a buyer waiting in the shadows. Did they have a list of specific demands? Or were these pieces easier to sell on the black market? And then there's the most confounding detail: the time they spent. 81 minutes is an eternity for a robbery, yet they didn't rush. Were they confident no alarms would sound? Or were they just lucky? Whatever their motives, one thing was clear: these weren't ordinary thieves. Their selections hinted at a story far deeper than a simple robbery. A story we're still trying to uncover. 81 minutes, no alarms, no witnesses, and no trace of their escape. How does something this elaborate leave so few clues? The thieves worked with surgical precision as if they had rehearsed this heist countless times. For 81 uninterrupted minutes, they moved through the museum, selecting their targets, cutting paintings from their frames, and dismantling the security systems. It wasn't frantic or rushed, it was calculated. They even took the time to inspect pieces they didn't steal, as though double checking a list. Meanwhile, the guards remained immobilized in the basement, helpless to stop the crime unfolding above them. Not a single sound reached the outside world. The museum, known for its serene beauty, became a silent theater of crime. When the thieves were done, they exited through the very same side door they had entered, carrying 13 stolen treasures into the night. No tire marks, no security footage, no witnesses. The city outside was alive with post St. Patrick's Day revelry, oblivious to the historic heist happening in their midst. The silent alarms were found ripped from the walls. No motion detectors had triggered. It was as if the thieves knew exactly how to neutralize the museum's defenses. But how? Did they study the layout beforehand? Or did they have help from someone on the inside? As investigators later noted, the thieves seemed to vanish as quickly as they appeared. No trace of their escape was found, no getaway car, no suspicious figures lingering nearby. It was as if they had walked into the shadows, taking the museum's greatest treasures with them. 81 minutes. That's all it took to pull off the greatest art heist in history. But would it take decades to find out who they really were? Sunrise revealed the unthinkable. A museum stripped of its treasures and not a single clue to explain how. As the morning shift arrived at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, they expected another quiet day. Instead, they walked into a scene of chaos. The security desk was abandoned, and the guards on duty the night before were missing. When the staff ventured into the basement, they found them bound, gagged, and disoriented. The empty frames hanging in the Dutch room were the next discovery. Their edges were frayed where the masterpieces had been hastily cut out. It wasn't just the loss of art that stunned the staff, it was the audacity. Who could have pulled off such a bold heist in one of Boston's most prominent institutions? The museum's director made the first call to the authorities. Within hours, the FBI took over, descending on the scene with crime scene tape and evidence bags. They scoured the museum for fingerprints, surveillance footage, anything that might give them a lead. But the thieves had been meticulous. The surveillance tapes from the security room, gone. The alarms, disabled. The escape route, a mystery. The staff, devastated, clung to one hope, that the art would be recovered quickly. But as the hours turned to days, it became clear that this heist was unlike anything they or law enforcement had ever faced. The big question loomed. How do you steal $500 million worth of art and disappear without a trace? This wasn't just a heist, it was the theft of cultural history, a loss that money could never truly measure. The sheer scale of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist was staggering. 13 works of art, including paintings by Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Degas, were gone. Art experts scrambled to calculate their worth, but placing a price on some of the pieces felt almost impossible. Vermeer's The Concert alone was valued at over $200 million, making it one of the most expensive missing artworks in history. Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only known seascape, was equally irreplaceable. But this theft wasn't just about money. These weren't commodities, they were cultural treasures, windows into history, imagination, and genius. The loss sent shockwaves through the art world. Museums worldwide tightened their security, fearing they could be next. The heist raised chilling questions. Who would dare steal pieces of such significance? Was it a black market collector willing to hoard the works in private? An organized crime group planning to use the art as bargaining chips? Or perhaps someone who simply wanted to make a statement? Whoever orchestrated this crime didn't just rob a museum, they robbed humanity of its shared heritage. But could they possibly keep such famous works hidden forever? Or would time eventually crack the case wide open? Was it a lapse in judgment or something far more sinister? The spotlight turned to the very people meant to protect the art. With no immediate suspects and the thieves seemingly vanishing into thin air, investigators began looking closer at the museum's security team. Rick Abath, one of the guards on duty that night, became a focal point. It was Rick who had buzzed in the two men dressed as police officers. Protocol dictated that no one should be allowed entry after hours, but he had let them in without hesitation. Adding to the suspicion, surveillance footage revealed that earlier in the night, Rick had opened a side door and closed it again. He claimed he was testing the alarm system, but to investigators, it seemed like a signal or even a deliberate breach. Rick maintained his innocence, insisting he was just an unwitting pawn in the heist. He described the intruders as confident and convincing, but his behavior raised questions. Was he simply a naive night guard who had been duped, or was there more to his story? As investigators pressed him, Rick's unconventional lifestyle added to the intrigue. A former musician with a rebellious streak, he wasn't the picture of a typical security guard. Could someone have exploited his demeanor and trust to gain access to the museum? Or worse, was he involved in the plan? Rick's answers provided no definitive proof of guilt, but his actions left a cloud of doubt hanging over the investigation. Was he a careless victim or a key piece in a much larger puzzle? The truth remained elusive, and the search for answers only deepened. Where there's a high-stakes heist, there's often a shadowy underworld pulling the strings. Was the Gardner heist part of a larger criminal web? As investigators struggled to find leads, one theory began to take shape: organized crime. The Boston Mafia had a reputation for using stolen art as currency collateral in negotiations, trades, or to leverage reduced prison sentences. Could the missing masterpieces have fallen into the hands of mobsters? One name stood out: Bobby Donati. A known associate of the Boston Mafia, Donati had a penchant for art and was rumored to have been involved in several criminal schemes. What made him particularly interesting was his connection to the museum heist. Donati had reportedly expressed interest in art theft before, even boasting about his knowledge of museum security vulnerabilities. A year after the heist, Donati was found brutally murdered, his death sending ripples through the underworld. The timing was too coincidental for investigators to ignore. Had Donati played a role in the Gardner theft, only to be silenced before he could reveal what he knew? Or was his murder the result of an entirely unrelated feud? Theories swirled that Donati may have hidden the artwork or passed it along to associates before his death. Some speculated the paintings were stashed in secret locations, waiting to resurface as bargaining chips. But without concrete evidence, these connections remained speculative. Was Donati a mastermind, a middleman, or simply a convenient scapegoat? The answers lay buried in the same shadows that had swallowed the stolen art. 13 frames, 13 ghosts, but why keep the reminders of a crime that still haunts the art world? If you walk through the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum today, you'll notice something unusual in the Dutch Room. Where Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee and Vermeer's The Concert once hung, there are only empty frames. The frayed edges where the canvases were cut out remain untouched, a stark and deliberate decision by the museum. For some, the empty frames are a symbol of loss, a visual echo of what was stolen on that fateful night in 1990. For others, they serve as an act of defiance, a silent vow that the museum will never forget and will never stop seeking answers. But the decision to leave the frames in place goes deeper. By keeping them visible, The museum hopes to spark memories, jog clues, or even provoke guilt in those who might know more than they're letting on. It's a bold psychological strategy, one aimed as much at the thieves as the art-loving public. Still, the frames are more than just a call to action. They are a haunting reminder that the Gardner Museum remains incomplete. Without the stolen works, the collection is forever fractured, its brilliance diminished by the gaping voids left behind. The question lingers: will the empty frames ever hold their treasures again, or will they remain silent witnesses to a crime that refuses to be solved? Each frame, though empty, seems to whisper the same plea: bring them home. Tips came from everywhere, but none led to the masterpieces. Where could such iconic art disappear without a trace? In the decades since the heist, the FBI has followed countless leads, each one promising to crack the case wide open. Anonymous tips claimed the paintings were hidden in warehouses across the globe. Some pointed to wealthy private collectors hoarding the stolen treasures. Others whispered of secret deals brokered in the shadowy corridors of the black market. One tip led investigators to Connecticut, where an aging mobster hinted he knew the fate of the paintings. Another pointed to Ireland, claiming the works were in the hands of the era. Yet, time and time again, each lead unraveled into silence: no evidence, no confessions, no art. Adding to the mystery, there were occasional sightings of the paintings themselves. A smuggler in Paris allegedly boasted about transporting the concert. A suspicious shipment flagged in Miami was thought to hold the storm on the Sea of Galilee. But every time investigators closed in, the trail went cold. The question gnawed at everyone involved: were the paintings still intact, hidden in some secret vault, or had they been destroyed, lost to greed, negligence, or even spite? If they were sold on the black market, why had no whispers of their sale reached the ears of the art world? Such iconic pieces are almost impossible to move without raising red flags. But if they weren't sold, then who was holding them and why? Each dead end seemed to deepen the mystery, leaving investigators and art lovers alike to wonder: would the world ever see these masterpieces again, or had they vanished forever into the void? A ransom letter surfaced. Could this be the breakthrough the case needed, or just another cruel twist in an already tangled mystery? Not long after the heist, a letter arrived at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. The message was brief but electrifying. The writer claimed to have the stolen paintings. They demanded a ransom in exchange for their safe return, offering proof that the art was still intact. The museum's leadership faced an agonizing decision. If the letter was genuine, it could be their only chance to recover the priceless works. But the risks were enormous. Could they trust the sender? Would paying the ransom only embolden future criminals? Despite their doubts, they responded, expressing interest in negotiation. And then, silence. The letter writers vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. No follow-up, no second letter, no sign of the paintings. Was the letter a hoax, a cruel game played by someone with no real connection to the crime? Or had the thieves gotten cold feet, spooked by the museum's response or the growing FBI presence? The letter, real or not, added another layer to the puzzle. If the thieves were behind it, what did their disappearance mean? Had they already stashed the art somewhere unreachable, or were they lying low, waiting for the perfect moment to re-emerge? The unanswered questions hung over the investigation, fueling theories but providing no clarity. Was this letter a fleeting brush with the truth, or just another false lead in a case full of them? The mystery only deepened, leaving the stolen masterpieces as elusive as ever. Time wasn't just the thieves' ally, it was their greatest weapon. Could the FBI's new art crime team beat the clock? In 2004, over a decade after the Gardner heist, the FBI took a bold step. Recognizing the growing epidemic of art thefts and the lingering mystery of the stolen masterpieces, they established a dedicated art crime team. This elite group of agents and experts was tasked with recovering stolen cultural treasures, with the Gardner case sitting at the top of their priority list. Armed with fresh resources and new technology, the team revisited every detail of the heist. Old tips were re examined, suspects re interviewed, and international connections explored. They worked with Interpol and art experts worldwide, casting a net as wide as it was intricate. But there was a harsh reality: time. The paintings had been missing for over a decade, and with each passing year, the trail grew colder. Memories faded, witnesses disappeared, suspects aged or died. The art world was vast, and even iconic works like Vermeer's The Concert could vanish into private collections, far from prying eyes. The team faced another challenge. Art theft is unlike other crimes. The stolen works couldn't simply be sold at a gallery or auction. They were too famous, too recognizable. Whoever held the paintings had to keep them hidden or risk exposure. But where and how long could they realistically remain concealed? For the art crime team, this wasn't just a search for stolen property. It was a race against time and the limits of human memory. The question loomed: had the trail gone too cold to follow, or was the next breakthrough just around the corner? The team pressed on, driven by a singular hope: to bring the masterpieces home. How do you hide one of the most valuable and recognizable paintings in history? For over 3 decades, the concert has remained a phantom in the art world. Of all the stolen pieces, Vermeer's The Concert is perhaps the most enigmatic. Its estimated value exceeds $200 million, but its true worth lies in its rarity. With only 34 known Vermeer paintings in existence, losing even one feels like a devastating blow to art history. Experts have long speculated that the concert may be hidden in a private collection kept far from public eyes. The notion is both chilling and fascinating, that someone somewhere might gaze upon this masterpiece in secrecy, relishing its beauty while the rest of the world mourns its loss. But keeping a painting of such notoriety hidden is no small feat. The concert isn't just valuable, it's famous. Its theft is widely documented, making any attempt to sell or display it a massive risk. Even in the shadowy circles of the black market, a Vermeer is far too recognizable to trade openly. This leaves the question: why steal it in the first place? Was it for ransom, only to have negotiations fail? Was it intended for a specific buyer, a collector willing to risk everything for possession of a Vermeer? Or was it stolen as a trophy, a prize for a criminal with no intention of ever parting with it? The mystery of the concert deepens with each passing year. If it's hidden, what condition is it in now? And if it's not, could it have been destroyed accidentally or even deliberately to erase evidence of the crime? To this day, the concert represents more than just a theft. It symbolizes the enduring question of how far someone will go to possess beauty, even if it means robbing the world of it. Art, power, and prestige, a combination that can inspire brilliance but also breed chaos. Did human pride sabotage the hunt for the stolen masterpieces? As the years dragged on with no resolution, frustration began to grow, not just among the public, but within the very teams tasked with solving the case. The art world is a peculiar ecosystem filled with brilliant minds, but also strong personalities. Investigators, art historians, museum staff, and even private collectors all had their own theories, agendas, and methods. These differing perspectives often clashed. Some believed that law enforcement wasn't doing enough, accusing the FBI of being too slow or dismissive of promising leads. Meanwhile, investigators felt the museum's staff and private art experts were holding back crucial information, either to protect the museum's reputation or due to mistrust of the authorities. Accusations flew, and collaboration often gave way to finger pointing. there were also whispers of deliberate sabotage. Could someone close to the investigation have been working against it? The Gardner heist was a high-profile case, and solving it promised immense prestige. But for some, maintaining control over the narrative or keeping certain secrets buried might have been more important than justice. These rivalries and egos created a web of complications, making a complex case even harder to untangle. Was valuable time lost because of petty disputes? Did critical leads slip through the cracks due to infighting? Or were these distractions a smokescreen hiding deeper truths about the heist? Whatever the cause, one thing was certain. While the thieves had stolen the art, these human conflicts had stolen the momentum needed to bring it back. The question remained, could unity ever be restored, or was the hunt for the Gardner treasures doomed by the very people trying to solve it? From whispers in the art world to blockbuster scripts, the Gardner heist has become a legend, but for the museum, it's a wound that won't heal. Over 3 decades have passed, and the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist has cemented itself as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history. It's a story that has captivated the public imagination, inspiring books, documentaries, podcasts, and even Hollywood films. The heist's audacity, the caliber of the stolen art, and the lingering mystery make it a perfect tale for those who love intrigue. But for the museum, this isn't just a story to tell, it's a haunting reminder of a loss they live with every day. The stolen pieces were more than just items in their collection. They were part of the museum's soul, handpicked by Isabella Stewart Gardner herself to inspire future generations. Their absence casts a shadow over the museum's mission, a constant reminder of what was taken. The crime's notoriety has also brought challenges. While the heist has drawn countless visitors eager to glimpse the empty frames and hear the story, it has also shifted the focus away from the art that remains. The Gardner Museum is meant to be a celebration of beauty, history, and creativity, yet it's often overshadowed by the crime that violated its very heart. And then there's the lingering hope, the belief that one day the masterpieces will return home. The museum has never given up, leaving the empty frames on display as a testament to their determination. But until that day comes, the heist's legacy is bittersweet, a tale of genius and loss, resilience and regret. The question lingers, is the world more fascinated by the art or by the crime? And will the Gardner Museum ever be able to reclaim its rightful place as a beacon of inspiration, free from the shadow of its greatest tragedy? Every tip sparks a glimmer of hope, but when so many paths lead nowhere, can any truly be trusted? As the years have passed, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist has remained a case that refuses to fade from the public consciousness. Tips continue to trickle in, each one tantalizing investigators with the promise of a breakthrough. Recent whispers have pointed to far-flung locations, some claiming the paintings are hidden in the Irish countryside, others alleging they were stashed in a Connecticut basement. One tip, delivered anonymously, claimed that the storm on the Sea of Galilee had been spotted in a private European collection, its owners too fearful of legal repercussions to come forward. Another lead suggested that the concert was hidden behind false walls in a Boston home, waiting to be discovered. But as investigators pursued each clue, they faced the same crushing reality. No hard evidence, no recoveries, just speculation. Even credible-sounding leads have often led to disappointment. A raid on a Connecticut warehouse revealed smuggled goods, but none of the stolen masterpieces. A promising informant in Ireland disappeared before providing critical details, leaving only questions in his wake. The more tips that poured in, the harder it became to separate truth from noise. For the museum and the FBI, each new lead is a double-edged sword bringing renewed hope, but also the sting of repeated failure. Could one of these whispers finally crack the case wide open? Or has the art been lost forever, hidden too well, or destroyed in the thieves' desperation to cover their tracks? The unanswered questions only deepen the mystery. Are these leads breadcrumbs that will eventually lead to the stolen masterpieces, or are they just echoes of a case destined to remain unsolved? Time will tell, but for now, the hunt continues. $10 million. A life changing sum for anyone with the key to unlocking this mystery. So, why has no one come forward? The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum's $10 million reward remains the largest ever offered by a private institution. It's a staggering figure, enough to set someone up for life. For those with any knowledge about the stolen artwork, the offer is simple. No questions asked, just the return of the pieces. Yet, despite the passage of over 3 decades, the reward has gone unclaimed. Why? Are the thieves still alive, holding on to their prize for fear of exposure? Is the art hidden too well, buried in basements or locked away in vaults, forgotten by everyone except those who took it? Or is there another, more unsettling possibility that the masterpieces have been destroyed, lost forever to carelessness or desperation? The museum's offer isn't just about the money, it's a plea. The reward is accompanied by assurances of confidentiality, designed to encourage anyone, whether they're an art collector, an informant, or even one of the thieves themselves, to come forward. And yet, silence. The lack of response fuels speculation. Could the paintings be in the hands of someone so wealthy they have no need for the money? Or perhaps the reward is too risky, returning such high-profile works might draw unwanted scrutiny, no matter how much anonymity is promised. Each passing year without an answer deepens the mystery. The empty frames still hang in the museum and the reward still stands. But with every unclaimed day, it becomes harder to shake the haunting question. Is the offer unanswered because the art, like the thieves, has vanished forever? In a world where technology can uncover secrets long buried, could the Gardner heist be the next cold case cracked wide open? The art world has begun to embrace modern tools to combat theft, and the Gardner case is no exception. Blockchain technology is being used to create secure digital records of artworks, while artificial intelligence combs through auction houses, private collections, and even old photographs to identify stolen pieces. Machine learning algorithms can detect patterns in historical cases, potentially pointing to overlooked connections. But for all its promise, technology faces a harsh reality: time. Over 3 decades have passed since the heist, and the trail may be too cold for even the most advanced tools. Digital scans can't uncover art that's been destroyed, and no AI can predict the motivations of human thieves. Still, hope remains. Could a single overlooked lead, paired with these advancements, finally solve the case? Or is the technology just another tool in a growing arsenal, waiting for the right moment to strike? Let us know, do you believe technology will be the key to unlocking this mystery? After 30 years, the Gardner heist remains as much a question as it is a crime. But where do you think the truth lies? Theories swirl endlessly about the fate of the stolen masterpieces. Some believe the thieves, whether they were mobsters, opportunists, or insiders, are long dead, taking the secret of the art's whereabouts to their graves. Others speculate that the paintings are hidden, tucked away in private collections, or waiting in some forgotten attic or basement. Then there are the darker theories. Could the art have been destroyed, lost forever to negligence or fear of exposure? Or could this entire mystery be a cover for something much larger, a crime whose true nature has yet to be revealed? The heist may be unsolved, but it's far from forgotten. Each theory invites more questions than answers, leaving us with one undeniable truth: this is a case that refuses to let go. What do you think happened to the stolen art? Share your theories below. We'd love to hear what you think. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist isn't just a story of theft. It's a story of loss, mystery, and the enduring search for justice. This isn't just about 13 stolen pieces of art. It's about the loss of culture, history, and the dreams of one woman who built a museum to inspire generations. The empty frames in the museum aren't just placeholders, they're symbols of hope, longing, and resilience. More than 30 years later, the crime still looms large, not just over the Gardner Museum, but over the art world as a whole. Will the masterpieces ever be found? Will the full truth ever come to light? Or will the Isabella Stewart Gardner heist remain a mystery, an unsolved echo from a long-lost night? As the empty frames wait, so do we. Perhaps you hold the key to the answers. What would you do to help solve this case? Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Together, we might just unlock the truth.